Hello everyone, welcome to the final lecture of Multinational Business Management. Well, time flies. Now we've been approaching the end of the learning journey. Today we will explore a widely and increasingly discussed topic in international business management, that is emerging market issues. If you remember well, we have touched upon this topic before, somewhere in the previous lectures, that we introduced emerging markets in a way that they are prospective investment destinations for multinational enterprises, because these markets offer very apparent cost advantages such as India and China, and they often happen to have abundant natural resources such as industrial diamond in South Africa or iron ore in Brazil. But this is just partial knowledge in emerging markets. In today's lecture, we will not only look at the bright sides of emerging markets, we will also discuss the dark sides in terms of the risks and challenges investing in emerging markets. And most importantly, we'll come up with the managerial implications for international businesses in and out of emerging markets. We will further place emphasis on introducing emerging market multinationals. Obviously, they are the multinationals originating from the emerging markets. And we will do the comparison between Western multinationals and emerging market multinationals respectively. You can see from the slide there are a number of questions we are going to explore today. To introduce and properly define emerging markets, certainly we need to clarify the distinction among different types of economics in the world in the first place. We will further discuss the pros and cons of emerging markets to develop a holistic and comprehensive understanding of the target markets. And finally, we will unpack the black box of emerging market multinationals in terms of their characteristics and internationalization strategies. To understand the definitions of emerging markets, it's crucial to identify different types of world economics. As you can see from the slide, it is full of keywords illustrating and describing different types of economics, including advanced, developing, and emerging markets. But what are the differences among the three types of economics? Basically, advanced economics are post-industrial countries with high per capita income, highly competitive industries, and well-developed commercial infrastructure. Typically, the richest countries in the world, including Australia, Canada, Japan, the United States, and most of the nations of Western Europe. On the other hand, developing economies, they are low-income countries characterized by limited industrialization and stagnant economics, such as Bangladesh, Bolivia, and Nigeria. Emerging markets, they are formal developing economics that achieve substantial industrialization, modernization, and rapid economic growth. Typical example would be BRIC countries such as Brazil, Russia, India, and China. If we take a wider perspective, we can see that emerging markets, they are countries which are in a transition phase from developing to advanced economics due to privatization, industrialization, and modernization. The emergence of emerging markets is rooted in their transformation from developing countries. Certain emerging markets, they have evolved from centrally planned economies to liberalized markets, especially we talk about China and Russia, and there are some other countries in Eastern Europe also go down the same path. These countries were once socialist states, but they have been largely transformed into capitalism-based systems, partly via a process we call privatization, which refers to the transfer of state-owned businesses into private concerns. Privatization, the promotion for newly privately owned businesses, they have allowed the emerging market to attract substantial FDI. These countries, they are quite ambitious to reach modernization in terms of improving their infrastructure, increasing productivity, creating more jobs, and to resolve the poverty issues. Therefore, countries which have started the economic reform process aim at resolving the problems we just mentioned, such as the poverty, poor infrastructure, and overpopulation, and they have achieved substantial growth in GDP per capita, and finally they have increased integration in the global economy. They are truly be called emerging markets. But you may be curious here that other than the BRIC country we just mentioned, what are the other emerging markets? There are various data sources identifying emerging markets, but they have different results, as you can see from the slide. From the most stringent perspective, all the emerging markets we discussed in the course, they are those have common census being approved by all the databases shown in the table. Therefore, you can easily identify their countries with the 5XX are emerging markets for sure. For instance, Brazil, China, Egypt, India, Indonesia, Mexico, Philippines, Russia, and Turkey. Well, then what about Taiwan? Within the categories of emerging market, here is a key concept needed to be introduced. There is a group of economics that have described as the four quickly and highly industrialized economics, including Hong Kong, Singapore, South Korea, and Taiwan, the so-called four tigers in Asia Pacific region. These countries, they are Asian newly industrialized economies, and strictly speaking, they have been developed and moved beyond emerging markets, but not yet as advanced economics. It's important to note that not a single country will always be categorized into specific economics. As the modern industrialization becomes more mature, current countries with developing economics, they will move towards emerging markets. And similarly, countries within emerging markets, they will move towards the advanced countries due to globalization of markets in international business contexts. However, why emerging markets matter in global economy? This table can give you some answers. This is clearly that emerging market contributes to the world's largest population, accounting for over 60%, especially the countries like China and India. Due to large population, their energy consumption reached half of the global consumption, and their combined GDP has remarkable performance. In 1980, the combined output of emerging markets accounted for about 36% of global GDP. They crossed the milestone in 2009, accounting for more than half of the global GDP. When most emerging markets were disrupted by the global recessions and financial crisis in 2008, their average growth rate have remained strongly positive. Emerging markets have become important target market for a wide variety of products and services, and therefore attracting large number of FDI, exporting and stock market capitalization. Due to the global recession, technology firms such as Cisco, HP, and Intel, they were generating a large and growing proportion of their revenues from sales to emerging markets. Even for the firms in the global pharmaceutical firms such as Pfizer and GlaxoSmithKline, GSK, they increased their emphasis on developing and marketing drugs only to emerging markets. In fact, Merck and Pfizer, the two major pharmaceutical firms, they have already launched popular drugs in India using very innovative pricing strategies that make once expensive medication affordable for millions of low-income consumers. And also, businesses in emerging markets, they are important targets for machinery and equipment sales. In these categories, markets are huge. For instance, textile machineries are large demands in India, electric assembly equipment in China, and oil and gas exploration technology in Russia. Although emerging markets share these common grounds, they are heterogeneous in terms of economic developments. Here's a video interviewing with a business analyst at JP Morgan, and he will tell you why.
You think about emerging markets and you think emerging markets are going up, emerging market equities are going down, for instance. But if you actually look at the composition of emerging markets, they're very different. There's a lot of cross currents. There's a lot of countries that are represented with very different geopolitical issues and structures. There's very different economies as well as very different valuations. So for that reason, we shouldn't really think about emerging markets as one entity. You look at a country like China and you try to see what the composition of its economy is. And in essence, 51% of GDP, for instance, in China is actually driven by investment spending. Part of that reason is over the last 3 decades, China has been building out their infrastructure. Think about their ports, their roads, their energy infrastructure overall, and that's why you find that composition of their economy. You compare that versus a country like Brazil, in which 64% of their economy is driven by consumption, people buying goods and services. And also, if you look at their investment spending, which is 19%, huge difference between that 51% in China and 19% in Brazil. Very similar story with Mexico, which has over 60% of their GDP is driven by consumption, and much smaller part investment spending. Again, huge differences, therefore you shouldn't kind of think of all of it as one entity. When you look at emerging markets, there are different countries that are affected by different situations outside of that country. So you look at China slowing down and its effect on Brazil. A lot of that is because of their trade linkage. The biggest destination for Brazilian exports is actually China. Roughly 70% of those exports are commodities. So if China slows down, or actually just slows down their commodity intake, it could significantly affect the Brazilian economy. You look at another country like Mexico, this is part of the emerging markets, and actually their biggest trading partner is actually the United States. So if the United States continues to grow 1 to 3%, even though China is slowing down, Mexico could actually benefit from the United States growing versus Brazil not doing as well because of a China slowdown. When you think about long-term economic drivers of growth, demographics is one of the main ones. A younger population tends to increase the labor force participation of that country over time. So the more people that are working, the more that you get output of goods and services. So for instance, in Russia, the median age currently is 39 years old, versus in India, the median age is 26 years old. These two countries are part of what you consider the emerging markets, yet they have very different demographics and therefore over the long term might have different growth rates.
In the video, the interviewee keeps emphasizing there are huge differences among emerging markets, and investors should not think all of them in one hand, meaning that there are indeed variations across economic developments in emerging markets. Such heterogeneities usually triggers interest of researchers and practitioners alike, and we will discuss all of these issues in the following slide. Given the heterogeneities of emerging markets, however, why increase in international businesses still see emerging markets as important locations to go abroad? In other words, what makes emerging markets attractive for international business? This is the second question listed on the slide, and we were going to discuss. What makes emerging markets attractive for international businesses? Basically, there are 3 reasons that can explain this phenomenal trend. Emerging markets as target markets. Emerging markets, they are manufacturing bases, and they are also very good sourcing destinations. First of all, emerging markets made up over 60% of the world's population and over 40% of the world's GDP on a purchasing power basis. Emerging markets have become an important target market for the wide variety of products and services. Exports to such countries accounted for 1/3 of total merchandise exports from the United States. This is because many emerging markets have huge middle classes with significant income for buying electronics, cars, healthcare products, and countless other products. However, how can we assess the potential of emerging markets? Here are 2 important indicators here. One is the size of middle class, and the other is purchasing power parity, the so-called PPP, in each country. To understand the middle class and its influences on emerging markets, here is a video for your information. The video essentially tells you the definitions of middle class and why it is important to emerging markets.
Emerging markets middle class, the new consumer. There are several definitions of the middle class. The OECD defines the global middle class as those households with daily expenditures between $10 and $100 per person. The middle class around the world will grow from 1.8 billion today to 4.9 billion in 2030. The vast majority of these new 3 billion consumers will live in Asia and other rapid-growing markets. In China, the middle class is 12% of the population. By 2030, it could be up to 74% of the Chinese. Middle class consumption. By 2030, demand from the global middle class could rise from 21 trillion to 56 trillion US dollars. 40% of this spending could take place in Asia and 60% in the Asia-Pacific region. The emerging middle consumers aspire for products and services catered to the upper income classes. As spending capacity grows, the share of expenditure consumed by food will fall, while the population will spend more on household appliances, cars, healthcare products, and education. Demand for particular goods and services will explode in emerging markets once income levels cross certain thresholds. Emerging markets are set to rebalance their economies toward rising internal consumption growth. What is the middle class today? How consumption trends shift from developed to developing economies due to their growing middle class? What needs to be done to sustain growth and the conditions of the growing middle class?
So what is middle class? How do we define which population can be categorized as middle class? In every country, middle class represents the segments of people between wealthy and poor. They have economic independence and consume many discretionary items. In emerging markets, the size and growth rate of middle class serve as a signal of dynamic market economy. For marketers of products and services, emerging markets are prime prospects. You can see the table here listing the rankings of middle class and emerging markets. You can see that India and Indonesia rank at the very top, given their large populations. But per capita GDP in these countries is rather modest, especially when compared to South Korea, China, Russia, and Mexico. However, the percentage of income held by the middle class in India and Indonesia is relatively high, at about 47% each. Contrast this to Brazil, where the middle class controls only about 39% of the national income. Demographic trends indicate that in the coming 2 decades, the population of middle class household in emerging market will become much bigger, acquiring enormous spending power. This is why many international businesses would like to enter emerging market to explore market opportunities, especially when they have stagnant sales in their home countries. Purchasing power parity (PPP), on the other hand, is calculated by GDP statistics to estimate and compare economic productivity and standards of living between countries. It basically compares different countries' currencies through a basket of goods approach. According to the economic theory, 2 countries' currencies are priced by the same basket of goods, taking into account exchange rates. One of the typical examples would be using a Big Mac index. I believe you all have heard about this, in which the economics measures PPP between countries by the price of the McDonald's burger Big Mac, because it is the standard product across the world. You can see from the picture below, if we use the USD as the baseline currency, people need to pay nearly 7 times more to purchase a Big Mac in Switzerland than in the United States, and nearly 4 times more in China. When PPP is high, apparently it indicates that the purchasing power of the country is very strong. Other than Switzerland, do you know which country has the largest purchasing power in the world? So here's the leading countries with the largest PPP in the world by the year of 2023. Luxembourg ranked the top. Its purchasing power per GDP per capita was approximately 37% to 60% higher than its neighboring countries in Europe. While prices are substantially higher in Luxembourg, the same is true for incomes. People earn more but spend more in a country. Do you see Taiwan on the list? Given that data indicates that we are one of the wealthy countries in the world, most of us do not believe so, do we? Emerging markets are home to low-wage, high-quality labor for manufacturing and assembling operations. Some emerging markets even have large reserves of raw materials and natural resources, such as South Africa for industrial diamonds and Brazil as the center for bauxite, which is the main ingredient in aluminum. The pictures below are the Chinese plants. The left-hand side is the Taiwanese firm Foxconn in China, and the other side, the picture is the terrifying creepy doll manufacturers assemblers in China as well. Global sourcing helps firms obtain competitive advantages. Numerous multinational enterprises that have established call centers in Eastern Europe, India, and Mexico. Firms in the IT industries like Dell and IBM that have very big benefits from outsourcing certain technological functions to knowledge workers in India. Intel and Microsoft, they have many of their programming activities performed in Bangalore, India, as you can see from the below picture. Given the rise of Indian workers towards a leading IT firm restaurant from Taiwan a couple years ago, there is no excuse that India has been a popular outsourcing destination of IT services by foreign companies. I now show you the video about global sourcing in India. You might be surprised that there are many business functions of high-tech and even professional services are now outsourced to India.
And this is a scan which has just come in. It's a CT of the abdomen and pelvis, which has come for pain. We basically have around 30 minutes as our turnaround time to generate a report.
On a daily basis, we get 2 of these large air freight containers shipped from San Francisco to Bangalore. In this particular example, we have lots of old photos that are fading away.
Teleradiology and Scan Cafe service very different markets, but they are both examples of a new generation of fast-growing businesses bringing increasingly sophisticated outsourcing operations to India.
You know, in 2002, when we set up teleradiology, it was essentially unheard of. Everyone would go like, terror, what? You know, so it was a concept that was new. It hadn't been done. Doing it from India was, of course, unheard of because it wasn't even being done really in the US. It was just something that was so new.
The company now employs more than 50 radiologists in India and other countries, sending back scans to hospitals in the US, Europe and Singapore in as little as 30 minutes. And they're now looking to expand their services into less developed places, including Africa. The Scan Cafe, meanwhile, was started out as a class project at the Wharton Business School. It began scanning and enhancing old photographs, but now increasingly employs high-end designers to create custom-made photo books. Originally, the founders planned to do this work in America.
And when we had the photo editing staff in San Francisco, it was costing us roughly $1 a photo just to enhance the colors and make it look nice and crisp. And very soon we realized that most consumers are not going to be able to afford paying $1 per photo just for photo enhancement. And the cost differential between the US and a city like Bangalore in India is almost 1:10 for a graphic editor kind of skill.
India's first generation of IT outsourcers pioneered the use of call centers and basic software development from cities like here in Bangalore. But now a new generation is rising in which ever more complicated services are being undertaken in cities like this. From smaller organizations doing medical research or graphic design to established giants like Infosys, who in their campus around me have 20,000 engineers delivering complicated software products, and even in areas like corporate R&D and financial services.
Behind the frosted glass here, I can't tell you who it is. We don't disclose names of our clients. It's a team of over 20 AMBA analysts working on a performance reporting system for a global asset manager. While we originally started out just doing sell-side research support, today we really support clients more at an overall front office level. And the reason this works, in some ways think of it as outsourcing 2.0, is that rather than middle office or back office transaction-oriented processes, we're actually taking knowledge processes that drive revenue and applying a combination of analytical talent from India experienced professionals who've come back from the States or London or Singapore, and adding the rigor of what a traditional outsourcing professional brings in.
When offshoring was being seen as a cost advantage, clients probably would have decided what they wanted to do. So it was in a services model, it was predominantly build this system for me, or maintain this system for me, or test this system for me. Today it is slowly shifting to how is the technology changing, how is the business changing, what can I do with this technology in my business. So they're expecting more and more innovation and then implementing those ideas as solutions.
Infosys and Amber are moving up the value chain, offering their clients ever more advanced options for research and innovation. But oil giant Royal Dutch Shell has taken this one step further by completely shifting some of its research functions to India.
If we look, for example, at the bitumen activity, today this is the global center for research and development in bitumen technology, and it is activity that used to be done in France. Same is true for our polyurethane tech services, which was based in Belgium.
Some in the West are worried that white-collar jobs in areas like graphic design, medical research or financial services that were once protected from outsourcing are now being done more and more often here in India. But this is the second wave of this country's outsourcing revolution, and now it is only going to accelerate. James Crabtree, The Financial Times in Bangalore.
From watching this video, you can understand the major benefits of global sourcing in India or other emerging markets is obviously cost efficiency. The foreign tax advantages of large wage gap between advanced economies and emerging markets. The strategic view of global sourcing suggests that just as the foreign achieve gains in efficiency, productivity, quality, and revenues by leveraging offshore talents, it also obtains the means to turn around the foreign businesses, speed up innovation, and restructure operation at home countries. Why is that? Because global sourcing allows the firm to free expensive analysts, engineers, and managers from routine tasks to spend more time researching, innovating, managing, and generally undertaking high-value added activities that contribute more productivity to increasing company performance. It is important to note that investments from abroad benefit emerging markets as well. They lead to new jobs and production capacity, transfer of technology, and linkages to the global marketplace. Given the perceived risks and challenges in emerging markets, why there are still many firms want to invest in emerging markets? Or more specifically, why it is more interesting to invest in emerging market now than it used to be. To give you the answer, here is another video, which is essentially a UBS web commercial encourage investments in emerging markets.
A lot of investment managers look at the world upside down, focusing on developed regions at the expense of those with greater potential for growth. The main reasons is that emerging markets historically have been associated with instability and lack of certainty regarding their development. However, today many of these economies are less volatile than the developed ones, enjoying lower levels of debt, moderate inflation, and better fiscal accounts. I'm Jorge Mariscal, the Regional Chief Investment Officer for Emerging Markets at UBS Wealth Management. Another reason investors tend to underweight emerging markets is because of a more general human tendency to invest in what is familiar. Now you can say this is rational to a degree because they're better informed about their domestic economy, more knowledgeable about local market conditions and so on. But this home bias, or instinct to favor the familiar over the unknown, can lead investors in the developed economies to miss out on growth and diversification opportunities elsewhere. When I'm not working, I teach theory and practice of emerging financial markets. In my class, I show how most emerging economies have learned from past mistakes. And in doing so, I hope to impress upon the next generation of investors that provided you have sound advice, emerging markets offer excellent opportunities. This is in sharp contrast to the high levels of national debt in the industrialized world. In a world of anemic growth and low yields in the developed economies, it's hard to avoid the conclusion that in the future, emerging markets will be the growth markets. A worldview you may want to discuss with your client advisor in your next investment health check.
The interview in the video is UBS Wealth Manager's regional CIO for emerging markets. In the video, he actually explained the reason why it is more interesting to invest in emerging markets now than it used to be. And the major reason for that is that historically, emerging markets may have been associated with instability and a lack of certainty regarding developments. However, today many emerging markets are actually less volatile than developed ones, and they have lower levels of debts, moderate inflections, and better physical accounts. The reason investors based in developed economies tend to underwrite emerging markets is due to the general human tendency to invest in what is familiar. The instinct may lead investors to miss out growth opportunities elsewhere and to overvalue domestic assets over international ones. This phenomenon, we call it the liability to foreigners in international business management. We have known the opportunities and benefits of emerging markets and why they are so attractive for international businesses as a whole. But what are the risks or challenges investing in these lucrative markets? This is the third question we are going to explore in the following. So you can see from the slide, there are a number of risks and challenges investing in emerging markets. The first one is political instability. It is associated with the corruption and weak legal framework that discouraged inward FDI and the development of reliable business environments. For instance, in Russia, we know that bureaucratic practices favor well-connected homegrown firms. Western oil companies have been denied access to Russian energy resources. The second challenge is weak intellectual property protection. Even when they exist, laws and safeguard intellectual property rights may not be enforced, or the judicial process may be painfully slow. In Argentina, enforcement of copyrights on recorded music, videos, books, and computer software is inconsistent. Counterfeiting, or the so-called unauthorized copying and production of the product, is very commonly seen in China, Indonesia, Russia, and especially of software. The third challenge is regarding the bureaucracy, red tapes, and lack of transparency. Burdensome administrative rules and excessive requirements for license, approvals, and paperwork all delay business activities in emerging markets. For instance, in China, getting a bank loan is very difficult, especially for smaller firms. There are many government forms needed to be completed, and it can take several months to register collateral within appropriate authorities. As a result, many firms can't obtain bank loans in a timely manner, delaying their ability to grow and flourish. While smaller businesses contribute about 60% of China's GDP, it's very ironic that they only account for about 15% of outstanding bank loans. The next one is the poor physical infrastructure. I think that's very obvious that in many of emerging markets, the high-quality roads, drainage systems, sewers, and electrical utilities are typically lacking. In India, many still do not have access to toilets and sewage treatment systems. Poor sanitation results in thousands of Indian children dying every week. India's ports, roads, railway, and airports are insufficient to handle the massive volumes of cargo that enter and leave the country every day. The next challenge is about partner availability and qualification. Foreign companies should seek alliances with well-qualified local companies in countries characterized by inadequate legal and political frameworks. Through such partners, foreign firms can access local market knowledge, establish suppliers and distributor networks, and develop key government contacts. But alliances are just like marriages. partners they can provide these advantages are not always readily available in emerging markets, especially for the smaller ones. The final challenges, I think, are most specific to emerging markets only, that we call as the dominance of family conglomerates. Many emerging markets are dominated by large, highly diversified firms that are privately owned, referred as the family conglomerates, or so-called FCs. They operate in industry ranging from banking to construction to manufacturing. They are usually very huge and using a lot of diversification strategies. They control the majority of economic activities and employ in emerging markets like India, where they are called business houses, in Latin America, where they are called grupos, and in Turkey, where they are called holding companies, in South Korea, where they are called chambers, and its top 30 FCs account for nearly half of economic assets and industrial revenues in South Africa. Samsung is perhaps the most famous Korean FCs. FCs enjoy various competitive advantages in their home countries, such as the government protections and support, extensive network in various industries, superior market knowledge, and access to capital. So here's a sampling of family conglomerates from various countries. So have you found any brand familiar? You can see there is a Taiwanese brand shown on the list, which is called Datong. Datong is the largest Taiwanese electric and electrical appliance producer. The company was founded in 1918, almost 100 years ago, and it started its international presence in the United States and Singapore in 1972, mainly through FDI in sales and distributions worldwide. So having understood the bright sides and downside of emerging markets, what are the implications for international businesses? Again, here are a number of strategies suggested from the textbook. The first suggestion, I think, it applies to all markets, not limited to emerging markets. It is said that successful companies should develop a deep understanding of the target country by customizing offerings and even altering their business models to fit into the unique emerging market needs. They are encouraged to apply creative approaches to promote their offerings. While suppliers and distribution channels are usually lacking in emerging markets, foreign companies can develop their own infrastructure to obtain requisite raw materials and components or move their finished goods to local buyers. In this case, international businesses can set prices appropriate for local conditions. For example, in China, customers favor text messaging on mobile phones to reduce the communication costs. How to penetrate the mobile commerce has become a priority for marketers in China. In India, as you've discussed in a case, GE Healthcare developed a superior lightweight electrocardiogram machine that sells for just about $1,500. It is targeted to doctors and clinics in poor areas. Such low pricing strategies really works in some emerging markets. The second suggestion is more practical in a sense. Instead of perceiving family conglomerates as local competitors in emerging markets, international businesses should turn such disadvantages into advantages by partnering with them. This is because FCs can provide various benefits, including financing, bank services, local suppliers, and distribution channels. By collaborating with FCs, for instance, international business can reduce the risks, reduce the time, and even reduce the capital requirement of entering the markets. They can develop helpful relationships with the governments and other key local players. They can target market opportunities more rapidly and effectively, and overcome infrastructure-related hurdles because their partners, the local FCs, they usually have their own infrastructure. And certainly you can leverage the FC's resources and local contacts. For example, Ford partnered with Kia to introduce the Sable line of cars in South Korea, and benefited from Kia's strong distribution and after-sales network. The third suggestion is more ambitious. In addition to building relationship with emerging market partners, international businesses can target emerging market governments or state-owned enterprises because they are important customers for three reasons. The first one is that governments buy enormous quantities of products, such as the computers and motor vehicles, and they usually consume a lot of services from the foreign companies, such as the agricultural or consulting services. Secondly, state enterprises in areas like railway, airline, and banking, they usually buy goods and services from foreign companies because typically they lack the knowledge of that. And thirdly, the public sector influences the procurement activities of various private or semi-private corporations. So if you build a good relationship with the government and set them as your main buyers in emerging markets, you will receive numerous other local networks and potential buyers from the local companies in emerging markets as well. In India, for example, the government works directly in planning housing projects. Siemens, GE, Hitachi, and other major vendors regularly participate in bidding for global tenders for emerging market governance. Finally, if you cannot turn your enemies into friends or business partners as suggested earlier, the last approach to manage emerging market risks or challenges is to directly and skillfully challenge emerging market competitors, in which these emerging market multinationals often possess various advantages that require skillful strategies and due diligence to overcome. But who are emerging market multinationals? In addition to know who they are, we will also discuss how do they internationalize as final questions in today's lecture. This table gives you the answer in reflection of the origin of emerging market multinational. So from these two metrics, depending on different directions of global FDI, we can categorize multinational enterprises into two broad types, including advanced multinationals and emerging market multinationals. The advanced multinationals, they are multinationals from the advanced world who seek international investments in other advanced economies or emerging markets. Whereas emerging market multinationals, they are multinational originating from emerging markets and invest abroad in other advanced economies or other emerging markets. Accordingly, based on such dichotomous classifications, we can identify there are a total of 4 directions of FDI, as you can see from cell 1 to cell 4 in the table. So here comes the critical questions. Of today, which directions of global FDI presents the majority? You might have known the answer goes for cell 2, that in the mid-1970s, more than 20% of global FDI flows went to emerging markets. And even to date, this market represents the main destinations of advanced multinationals. The second greatest FDI locates in cell 1. In the post-World War II, most of the global FDI flow from one advanced economy to another. For instance, American firms invested in Europe, European companies invested in the United States, vice versa, mainly because of the human tendency to invest where it's more familiar to them. Cell 3 indicates in the early 1980s, 2/3 of our FDI from emerging markets went to other emerging markets. And cell 4 indicates FDI originating in emerging markets distinct to the advanced economies. These two directions only present rarely, which is a small percentage of global FDI flows, but they are a rising trend in international business. In other words, there are more and more emerging market multinationals standing the global economy by direct investments in either other emerging markets or in the advanced world. But who are they anyway? As emerging markets open out to the global economy in recent years, a number of local firms not only survived the battle for markets at home, they expanded internationally through exports and FDI to become giant multinational enterprises in their own rights. It is intuitive to associate with the emerging market with companies from the BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Well, these economies, especially China, home to the majority of the largest emerging market companies, feature on Fortune Global 500 list. Many other parts of the developing world also breed homegrown business champions, such as South Korea, Mexico, Malaysia, Poland, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, Thailand, and Turkey. But which industries do these emerging market multinationals operate in? As you can see from the slide, they operate across a variety of industries, although the largest companies are generally from the resources sector. For example, the many emerging market energy companies often control almost one-third of the world's oil and gas production and more than one-third of its total oil and gas reserve. High-tech engineering and manufacturing companies are prominent in South Africa, Taiwan, Singapore, and Hong Kong. And agricultural heritage also means many emerging market multinationals are in food processing and related industries, most notably in South America and emerging Asia. A typical large emerging market multinationals operate across a broader range of industries than does its developed market counterparts. This partly reflects the greater incidence of the conglomerate structure, especially in South Africa, India, Southeast Asia, and Middle East and Africa. But emerging market multinationals that operate as conglomerates in their domestic markets typically tend to focus their international expansion in one or two sectors. Samsung, for example, operates in many industries at home, such as insurance and textile, but internationally competes mainly in electronic industries. As you can see from the slide, here are some examples of emerging market multinationals. Can you recognize them? You can see from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. The first one is China's Huawei in telecommunication equipment. The second one is India's Tata Consultancy Services in information technology sector. And the middle one is the Philippines Jollibee in food chain franchising. Jollibee is some kind of Filipino McDonald's in the world. And the fourth one is Mexico's Cemex, which is in the cement industry, which is kind of in construction materials. And finally, Russia's Gazprom, which is obviously in the energy sector. The rise in emerging market multinationals have triggered bulk research on the development topic. Increasing studies in international business strategies fields have been interested in questions like why those relatively poor and underdeveloped emerging markets are able to attract so many global firms in the past 2 decades. Other dominant emerging market multinationals, as you can see from the slide, distinctive in any way because they originating from emerging markets. Apart from the discussions of country of origin or locational factors in emerging markets, here's another strand of international business research focusing on the strategic factors, and it mainly explores the question like, in what ways are emerging markets different from traditional advanced multinational enterprises? Why and how do emerging market multinationals internationalize in global markets? Remember in the past lecture when we talked about internationalization risks, such as cultural, institutional, economic relations across international markets. Those concerns were mainly related to multinational enterprises from the advanced world. We often assume that these multinational enterprises from the advanced world, with relatively stable economic developments and well-structured institutional framework in their home countries, they will face greater challenges when they invest abroad in the emerging markets. What has been missing from the prior discussion is that we essentially overlooked the importance of country of origin factors, I would say the home country factor for those unconventional emerging market multinationals. Since they were from rather poor and undeveloped environments, will they have the same internationalization strategies as compared to traditional multinational enterprises from the advanced world? The answer is clearly no. In practice, many emerging market multinationals took very aggressive internationalization strategies to take their part in the global marketplace. For instance, in the early stage of internationalization, they relocated headquarters from the emerging markets to the advanced world in order to offset the investment limitations in their home countries. HSBC moved its headquarters from Hong Kong to London, which gave the example for its kind of emerging market multinationals. To sum up, when analyzing a question that are concerned with how do emerging market multinationals internationalize and where do they go, we can't use the same logic to unpack their motivations and processes in internationalization. But what exactly the differences between traditional multinational from advanced world and the new emerging market multinationals? The following 2 slides from the academic point of view will give you the answer. This diagram shows the traditional view on the internationalization of advanced multinational enterprises. The main drivers for advanced multinational enterprises internationalization were concerned with the country's specific advantages. Because these multinationals, they have good home country environments so that they can accumulate many competitive advantages from their home countries and bring those advantages abroad while competing with their foreign competitors. Throughout the internationalization processes, these advanced multinationals further develop and internalize those location-bounded advantages when they invest abroad and transform them into firm-specific advantages with the capability of resources or knowledge transfer between headquarters and subsidiaries around the world. However, on the other hand, as you might have been aware of, emerging market multinationals, they should not have any country-specific advantages from their home countries. Yet, successful emerging market multinationals would strive to turn these location-bounded disadvantages, such as institutional voids, into advantages, while competing with other foreign competitors in early stage of their internationalization. These emerging market multinationals, because of their poor background conditions, they were born to overcome the difficulties in internationalization and throughout the expansion processes. They accumulate and develop quite different firm-specific advantages from advanced multinationals. These firm-specific advantages are often quite localized, with flexibility to adapt into different local market conditions and consumer tastes, as well as other market characteristics. The key success factor of emerging market multinational is how to reconcile and reconfigure their home country disadvantages with firm-specific advantages along with the internationalization process. To give you a better understanding of the emerging market multinational, here is a case called Israeli emerging market multinational. We call it as Better Place. I don't know if you've heard about this company. This company is very interesting and very innovative in a way. So let's watch the video first and let's do the discussion later.
We don't want to put an end to this, or this, or even this. We just want to end the world's dependency on this, because it causes this.
The increase in the cost of a barrel of oil dramatic.
Experts say the rising temperatures are proof of global warming.
Which is why we believe this.
We have to make the right moral decision. We have to make it immediately.
So we're making the world's first electric car network. It's made up of hundreds of battery switch stations, where you can switch this for this in less than 5 minutes. We call it Drive, Switch, Go. We're also building thousands of charge spots that look like this, so you can recharge at home, at work, or wherever else you stop. All this means you have all of this, everything you'd expect from this, and none of this. And no worries about this. The side effect? You help save this. This is Better Place.
Better Place essentially tapped into a fairly new market, which is the electric cars, and the founder of the company does not have any experience in the automotive industry before. What it does is to bring in a new business model, providing and selling only services to the customers, which is quite similar to what we used to have in the mobile phone service industries. For instance, we pay monthly fee and we can buy very cool phones for a cheaper price, but we need to pay out the contract with the telecommunication services of about 2 years. This is what we used to have in the mobile phone services industries. And the founder of Better Place brought in the same concept into his company. This business model, separating the ownership of the electric cars and the battery, proved to be very successful not only in the home country Israel, but also in the Middle East countries. And the companies was very ambitious to expand their business model into the United States and European Union countries. The sad part is the company went bankruptcy in 2013 due to liquidity issues. Instead of doing FDI in the foreign market with a full ownership and control over the company's assets, Better placed foreign international strategic alliances, partnering with the foreign companies in the host countries, and such business relationships did not work out very well. Their foreign partners could not deliver the same quality of services for customers, and most importantly, customers worldwide found the services provided by Better Place was quite limited. They could only choose restricted types of cars to be rental, and the electricity charging station were not easily accessible. There was tons of problems of this company. But if you're interested, I can upload a case study for information onto Google Classroom. You can see, I don't know if any of you are a Google user in Taiwan, you can see that Google were actually copying the Better Place business model. Okay, that's just another story. So taking Better Place, for example, what could be the key success factors of emerging market multinational in the global marketplace? And what sustains emerging market multinational global competitiveness? I think innovation plays the role in this emerging market multinational. Though we do not often associate innovation with the emerging market multinational because many of the institutional framework are underdeveloped. Think about China and Brazil. But many more foreign emerging markets are preparing to go down the same path in the future. Business magazines such as Business Week and Economics, they have noticed this trend with cover stories on emerging market giants and illustrate the disruptive effects of this emerging market multinational on established traditional Western multinationals. But you may wonder that, are these emerging market multinationals really understand innovation? Are they just imitating what others have been done by its Western competitors? According to a friend of mine, Professor Odi Schenker in the United States, he has been doing a lot of research on innovation and limitation strategies and published many articles at Harvard Business Review. So this is one of them. He argued that imitation is much more important than innovation nowadays. As based on empirical studies, nearly 98% of the value of the innovation goes to imitators. That is, the imitators makes the most profit out of the original ideas made by someone else. Does it bother you? You have been always learning the first must obtain the first mover advantages in order to gain a market share. And it's always good and do no harm to be innovators. But here comes the puzzle. Even if you were the first mover like White Castle or Diners Club, you cannot sustain your growth if you do not keep innovating your new product or services, can you? Late movers like McDonald's and Visa MasterCards, they are the imitators and they are really good at copying and making the original business model much better, so that they made the majority of the market shares as well as the sales profits. If we apply such concept to explain emerging market multinational success, it does make a lot of sense. Many emerging market multinationals typically lack R&D capability and even do not have R&D department in-house. What they really have doing is keeping up the pace in the global marketplace are either two ways. The first one is they will do a lot of aggressive mergers and acquisitions, as we often see in the knowledge-intensive industries like pharmaceutical or high-tech industries. And the second approach is they will buy patents across different industries. Unlike the first approach, the most M&As happen to be in the same industry by vertical integration. Patent purchasing or transferring are usually across industry by horizontal integration. Emerging market multinationals, they are particularly good at integrated functional knowledge instead of developing original knowledge. So let me give you a practical example here. Another friend of mine, whose family businesses is the largest railway manufacturer in China, with no R&D department in-house, they've just made their first patent purchase last year to upgrade its railway infrastructure. They built a patent from the 3D laser company in Belgium, which was the startup firm. This Chinese railway manufacturer applies 3D laser technique to scan the trains passing by certain locations of the railway. With the instant scanning technique, they can easily spot the faulty problems of the trains and report back to the head office of the railway company, ensuring the problems will be fixed as soon as possible. The main idea is to purchase someone else's patents and technologies and then integrate it into the original function of the businesses. I think emerging market multinationals are pretty good at that. You can see this is a very evolutionary technology in railway industries to keep passengers safe. But this technology was not innovated by the Chinese company. It was imitated by the Chinese firm and even make it better utilized in new industries such as railway, and made down the majority of the market shares and most profits. In summary, innovation is always good, but what is more important is imitation is no longer to be seen as a negative term. Any company that wants to grow and sustain its competitive advantages should embrace innovation and imitation at the same time. Imitating what has been done and make it better is essentially a total incremental innovation, isn't it? In fact, many of the homegrown emerging market multinationals find innovative ways to benefit from low-cost labor pools and overcome shortages in skillful talents. They usually turn globalization to their advantages, deploying the latest technology by developing and buying them, such as the case of Huawei. They've done a lot of mergers and acquisitions to expand their global presence. Also, many Western multinational enterprises regard emerging markets as having relatively weak institutional framework and large cultural differences between their home countries and target emerging markets. This produced difficulties for multinational enterprises to enter and operate in emerging markets. However, as emerging market multinationals themselves, their business models overcome these drawbacks and yield competitive advantages in the process, mainly because they have been familiar with their social and national environments in their home countries and do not perceive such weak institutional developments and cultural differences as critical challenges for them. Furthermore, they go international as soon as possible to prevent regional rivals from challenging them. In other words, these emerging market multinationals, they are typical global challengers who are very ambitious to do internationalization, especially about mergers and acquisitions. Unlike Western multinational enterprises, emerging market multinational, they are not constrained by existing products or preconceived notions about customer needs. They have been familiar with their home markets and therefore customize products and services to meet different customer requirements by localization strategies, and they initially go after economies of scope. This can be seen from Better Place case that they produce customized products and services for their customers at home in order to firstly become the giant in its home market before going abroad. Now you've known that emerging market multinational usually apply very hostile internationalization strategies via mergers acquisitions in order to take part in the competition with the multinational enterprises from advanced world. But not all companies originating from emerging market have substantial capabilities and sizable resources to win the competition. In response to the foreign competition, emerging markets can use the following four survival strategies as plotted in a matrix in the slide. To utilize these strategies, there are two questions that every manager in emerging market need to address. The first one is, how strong are the pressures to globalize in your industry? And secondly, how internationally transferable are your company's competitive assets? Despite the globalization phenomena, industry actually vary a great deal in the pressures they put on companies to sell internationally. If we picture industry as the spectrum from which their pressures to globalize from weak to strong, at one end of the spectrum are companies in the industry where their pressures to globalize are very strong, such as aircraft engines, memory chips, and telecommunication switches, in which they face enormous fixed costs for product development, capital equipment, marketing, and distribution. Covering those costs is impossible at home, so they have strong motivation to sell their products in multiple countries, and their consumers are usually satisfied with the standardized products and marketing appeals. At the other end of the spectrum are industries where the pressures to globalize are rather weak, in which their success are quite localized, centering on how to satisfy the particular demands of local consumers, are the core of their businesses. For example, in retail banking industries, companies compete on the basis of well-established relationship with their local customers. Most industries, of course, lie somewhere in the middle of spectrum. International sales brings some advantages of scale, but adapting to local preferences is also essential. By thinking about where the industry falls on the spectrum, managers from emerging markets can begin to get a picture of the strengths weaknesses of their multinational competitors. Once they understand their industries, emerging market managers need to evaluate their company's competitive assets. Most emerging market companies have assets that give them a competitive advantages mainly in their home markets. They may, for example, have local distribution networks that would take years for their foreign competitors to replicate. They may have long-standing relationship with the government officials that are simply unavailable for foreign companies. Any of these assets could form the basics for a strong defense of the home market. Alternatively, for some emerging market firms, their competitive assets may come from the basic for expansion into other countries. For instance, they may use access to low-cost raw materials at home to undercut the price of products sold in other countries, or they may use their expertise in building efficient factories to establish operations elsewhere. By paying close attention to countries where market conditions are similar to theirs, emerging market managers may discover that they have more transferable assets than they realize. The more similar market conditions in other countries, the greater the chance of transferring the competitive assets abroad by the emerging market firms. These two parameters, the strength of globalization pressures in industries and the degree to which the company's assets are transferable internationally, can guide the strategies for emerging market firms, as you can see from the matrix. The first strategy we call it as defenders. Industry globalization pressures are weak and an emerging market firm's assets are not transferable, then it needs to concentrate on defending its turf against multinational incursion. It may customize its competitive assets for the home markets, leveraging the local advantages and focusing on aspects where multinational prices are weak. We call an emerging market firm employing such strategies a defender. The second strategy we call it as extenders. If globalization pressures are weak, but the company's assets can be transferred, then the firm may still hold its competitive advantages that can be transferred to similar markets and extend their global presence. The sort of company is an extender. The third one is called dodgers. If globalization pressures are strong, and a company will face bigger challenges. If its assets work only at home, then its continued independence will hang on its ability to dodge its new rivals by restructuring around specific links in the value chain where its local assets are still valuable. It may have to sell out to multinational enterprises, enter the joint venture, or focus on different area within the value chain where local advantages can be utilized. Such a company, in our terminology, is a dodgers, means escapers. The final strategy we call it as contenders. On the other hand, if an industry is globalizing rapidly and a firm's competitive advantage can be transferred abroad, it can upgrade its capabilities and resources and compete with foreign firms in international markets. Then it becomes the global contenders or global challengers. I've explained these four different types of survival strategies in response to the foreign competitions in emerging markets. You can now take some time reviewing the case materials I've uploaded onto Google Classroom and plot these four strategies to the corresponding cases. Well, I have to admit that one lecture of emerging markets does not give you the full information of it. Think of emerging markets, they are so big in terms of market sizes, and they are so different in terms of market characteristics. And not to mention, they have unconventional ways to compete with the developed world. That's why I've offered a postgraduate level course on emerging market issues to help students complete the jigsaw puzzles of international business. If you have any questions regarding the lecture contents today, please let me know. Okay, thank you for your participation in the course. It has been a wonderful journey of teaching and learning with you. I hope you have strengthened your knowledge of multinational enterprises in my course. And your final assignment in the course is international expansion projects. And I believe it is a very good opportunity for you to apply what you learned from the course into practices. I will see you all next week to listening to your presentation about your internationalization plan for the client organizations. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much.